And on to video 4. This one is going to be looking at our timeline panel, or as I like to say, knowing the timeline and understanding where everything is within this project panel, or timeline panel, excuse me. So with going from the project panel to our timeline panel, this is where the work happens. So this area is where you place your files, compositions, and execute effects on different layers. So as you can see, this project or composition that I have open only has a few different layers, but again, this within the timeline, I want you guys to really pay attention to layers and the importance of both what we talked about before, the stacking for the vertical and also the horizontal, which we're going to look at within this timeline panel. So again, the left side is the one side where we're going to see the vertical up and down layers and how they're stacked on top of one another, and then the right side is going to be the duration of the composition, so the horizontal from left to right. In understanding layers, I've already said this, but it's very important, okay, and the difference between the spatial, the dimensions, and also the temporal, the time. And like most Adobe products, layers are very key, or very important to working within your project. So within our timeline panel, one thing I want to highlight before we start to look at other features within this panel is the tab. So if I notice that within this timeline panel, I have a couple different tabs open. So maybe I'm working on different compositions. You can click on those. It will bring up your different projects or compositions you're working on. So I've been working on this one, and we're going to look at that is a lower third that I was working on for a certain project for the department. And so going from there, I'm going to look at right over here. This is our timeline within the duration again, but I want to show how as I scrub along this project and we're looking in the composition panel, I can see what's playing through. But as I look at the time, we're going to start over here on the left, that we've got our timeline indicator, okay, and our duration. So the duration right here, or our length, units of measure, is displayed in a time called Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. And the way that's broken down, we've got our hours, our minutes, seconds, and frames. So right now within our timeline in our composition, I'm sitting at 15 frames. As I scrub along, if I go to right at 1 second, now I notice that I've gone to the 1 second mark, and that's where I sit within our timeline. Also underneath that, if we look, we've got our 23 frames per second, so it shows you the frame. If I have a lot of layers and I'm trying to search, so if your projects get really complex, you can search for a layer. So if I were to say let's see if I can even click on there. I should have the University of Dayton. As you notice, it's already starting to highlight. Oh, I can't even do that. There you go. University of Dayton logo. So just solo out that logo to show what layer I'm looking for. So that's the search icon or search bar where we can look for layers. With a lot of these over here, these icons, we're going to look at those in later chapters. So right now I want to jump down to right here. We're going to only focus on a very small portion of our timeline panel, and this is right here over at the beginning is our eyeball or the visibility. So with this layer, the University of Dayton logo, it shows up here. If I were to unselect that, as you noticed, it then makes it invisible, so I'm not seeing it. Again, if I click that and bring up the eyeball, then it will make it visible. Next here is our audio. I do not have any audio in this project, so we're not going to see anything to check or select in that way. If I go to the next one, it's our solo. So that same logo or layer that we were working with, if I select that, it's just going to make that soloed out. So if I'm really working on a complex composition and I want to work on just one graphic or one layer, I can solo it out and make sure that I'm really paying attention and keying into the animation or whatever else I'm trying to do with that layer. If the next layer I look at, lock, alright, so if I perfect a layer and I don't want to make any more changes, I could lock that and make sure that I would not be able to, let's go ahead, and I would not be able to change that. So as you notice that even if I select this layer and try to move it, it's not going to allow me. Even with selected, I cannot change that layer that I've locked. The next, we're going to look at our source name or layer name. This is again within the organization, trying to stay organized and making sure that we're keeping everything labeled, so that way when we go to look for certain layer, that we can find it quickly, especially if we're handing off this project to someone else. With the mode and track mats, we're not going to look at that quite yet. We're going to look at that in later chapters, but I'm going to jump in. Within chapter 2, we're going to start to look at some of these icons over here with our motion blur, 3D, and parenting. So we're going to look at those again. Not going to really pay attention to this within the chapter, but modes and track mats, kind of understanding what they mean. The modes might be for when later on we're trying to blending different layers together. Track mat, same with looking at alpha layers and inverted layers. So this one you can see that I've got our alpha mat, which you guys are probably going to confuse. So I'm not even going to go into that. I'm not even going to confuse you guys with what's going on there. We're going to jump over to the right side. And within the right side, what we have over here is, again, our duration. Okay, so this is the temporal, where our time is actually playing effect. And within this area, this work area, as I scroll, this is our current time indicator. And as I scrub along, we're going to notice how it changes with what is showing in our composition. Okay, right here. And same, it's going to be affecting the left side of where we are duration. If I wanted to zoom in, so if I made sure, if I was trying to work on an effect in here, and I'm going to go to some of these keyframes that I've worked on. If I really want to make sure I want to get in and pay attention to what frame I'm on, I can, within this area down here, which is our zoom, alright, zoom into a frame level, I can do that by using this to enlarge or zoom into that specific area. I can also use this area up here, this little time navigator bar. I can also zoom in the same with just doing that. The next one I'm going to look at right down here as I scroll over is our work area. This is our work area bar or within our time ruler. And if let me go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. If I were to say I'm only working on right here to 5 seconds, this composition is pretty much over and I want to render it out, I can say I just want to work on this area. So this highlighted gray, lighter gray than the darker gray, is saying that this is the area I'm focusing on. This is the what I'm going to play back, and this is what I'm going to render my time. So we can do that just by changing this work area bar and making sure that we can focus in on that area. So this really quickly is, again, our timeline panel and looking at what you're going to be doing within projects in our composition.